heavy-handed enforcement of the current administration, I believe, is actually counterproductive.
You just said something that is completely a lie.
Consider sanctuary cities. They're not allowing the cops to show up or HSI to show up. Now they let them go, and now HSI has to go get them in the street.
I think Americans need to prepare themselves to pay a whole lot more for the produce.
Hey, it's Luis Pimber, aka Lou Pimber, here at the Pimber Speaks podcast. Today I have two guests, two very interesting individuals. One who I've had the pleasure of speaking to before, you might recognize Victor Avila, HSI Special Agent. I believe you're in Dallas now, Victor, is that correct?
That's right.
And the author of the book, Agent Under Fire. And then we have Mr. Jaime Abeytia. Did I say it right?
Correct. Yes, that's very good.
Out of El Paso, Texas. He is, I'll let him introduce himself, tell you know who he is. And I'm very proud of having both and thankful for that. By the way, hi, Victor, thank you so much for your endorsement of my book, Breaking Badly. I love it. And so I appreciate that, my friend. And so what I want to talk about today is a very important topic affecting everybody for different reasons. I have my own personal feelings for it as well. I also have my based on my experience. I haven't been a law enforcement officer for many years, undercover drug agent for most of my career. I haven't been a soldier as well. I have my personal feelings, and I have my feelings of just the facts of it, right? So I always want to hear what other people think and feel. You know, I want to start with Jaime here, since he hasn't had a chance to release be with me before. But Jaime, I want to talk about your kind of boots on the ground. You're a second generation labor representative in El Paso, correct?
That's correct.
But you're originally out of
Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, okay. My old home state, Arizona, man. I've spent a lot of time over there, but it's hot as heck, brother. So tell me, man, what are you hearing out there from within your circles, within the unions and all the stuff that you do with folks out there? What are you hearing?
Well, listen, you know, I live on a border community. I live a couple of stoplights away from the Mexican border. So the border life is a reality here. We're on the front lines of immigration here in El Paso. And I will tell you that as a resident of a border community, it is nothing like it is portrayed to middle America by folks like Fox News and some of these other far-right conservative organizations who clearly have an agenda to scare a certain sector of America. That is not to say that we have this Pollyannic view of what's happening at our border, but our border is literally where policy meets the rest of the world. And I will tell you that nothing is as bad as they make it out to seem. It is a deliberate effort to not only demonize a community, but it is also a deliberate effort to misrepresent what's actually happening at the border. I find that frustrating, and I find that the heavy-handed enforcement of the current administration, I believe, is actually counterproductive.
So tell me real quick, man. So tell me, you say it's being misrepresented, right? Misrepresented. What do you mean by that? Is being misrepresented by the media outlet or by the law enforcement or by
no. I will tell you, it's being misrepresented by the administration. You know, I'm kind of tired of the demonization of journalism because it's an easy way for the administration to kind of pass off their problems by saying everything is fake this or fake that whenever it's something they don't agree with. What I will say is a misrepresentation is a lot of our elected leaders. As someone who lives in El Paso, this has gone back to Governor Perry when he was a governor of Texas, and he would tell people, there are cars being blown up in El Paso. Nothing could be further from the truth. I live in one of the safest communities in the entire nation. El Paso has been one of the safest communities in Texas for as long as I can remember, and we're one of the safest communities in this country. Going back to when Speaker Boehner was Speaker of the House, you know, he was one of the first Republicans to try to demonize the border, and our then member of Congress, Silvestre Reyes, pointed out to him, your district has a higher crime rate than the one I represent that you were trying to demonize. So I think this is a deliberate effort by a lot of our elected leaders to exaggerate or just flat out mislead the public on what life really is like on the border.
Let me ask you this, but what is it really like then? So are you saying that what we see on television and what police are reporting and the stats, that those aren't true? Or
No,
you,
and I will tell you that police in our community will be the first ones to tell you that this is a safe community because it is something that they take pride in. I rarely lock my vehicle. I rarely lock my door. Not only because I happen to be a gun owner, which is kind of contrarian to what most people view of liberals, but also because I don't have to. I live in a very safe community. I can't tell you that there is an unsafe part of El Paso. I
hmm.
grew up in Phoenix. I can tell you the unsafe parts of town. I can tell you the places where I lock the door and make sure that I keep my daughters closer to me when we're walking in a Walmart parking lot. I don't have that experience here. And local law enforcement here will tell you the same thing. We do
Got it.
not have a security problem the way that it is exaggerated in our media. And you will find there are several border sheriffs, several border police chiefs that routinely testify in front of Congress about the safety of their communities.
So Victor, you spent a lot of time working in El Paso, right? I think
Born and
you,
raised there, brother. Born and
yeah.
raised in El Paso. I tend to agree a little bit, not too much. I do agree that border towns are not understood. They're very unique places that I think the rest of the country doesn't really understand unless you're from there and spend quality time and not not go and visit for a 5 minute op. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm born and raised there. I went to high school there. I graduated from UTEP. I started all my career there. Even when I became an agent, I went back to El Paso. So I know El Paso like the back of my hand, and it's not the safest that it used to be anymore. It used to be. It used to be where El Paso used to get 9, 10, 12 homicides a year, which is incredibly low. The problem with El Paso has always been property crimes. That's the thing. I do lock my doors in El Paso. I always did because people break into cars, people break burglaries of habitations, and there's a lot of property crimes. Those property crimes have escalated in recent years to different crimes. We've seen carjackings in El Paso. We've seen some more serious crimes in El Paso that you didn't see before. There's a big problem with driving while intoxicated in El Paso right now. The city's trying to do a lot of things. So it's not the same city. My parents still live there, and my other family members still live there. They tell me, and I go to El Paso a lot, it's not the same. Not even from 10 years ago. It has changed. Is illegal immigration a part of it? A little bit. I'm not going to say all of it, but sure. There's a lot of people that are not from El Paso that I think have contributed a contributing factor to that. I wish it was a safe city. Like when I grew up in El Paso, I was gone for 8 hours and nobody knew who I was. And it
Yeah.
was very different times. I wish it was back like that. But my family members that live there, and I think because maybe I had a different insight to the city. And I'll share a quick story. When I started as a parole officer for Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and I was 22 years old, and all this crime world was introduced to me that I didn't know existed. And you probably went through this in your career, early in your career, Lou. I couldn't believe the amount of crime that is happening. And I think sometimes when you don't know, you don't know. And ignorance
Yeah.
is bliss sometimes. But I did know. And I learned about a lot of individuals roaming around our streets, bad people, sex offenders, gang members, criminals. And I remember going back to my house and thinking, grilling in the evening, like, what world did I just come from? I grew up here. So there is a big problem with crime, gangs, cartels. They live in El Paso. They live all over the United States. And I don't want to dismiss it because it does exist and it is going on as we speak.
You know, I grew up a lot in Arizona and Tucson. I was in Nogales a lot, which is a border town as well. So I was one of those kids that was, running across the other side of the border, messing around with my buddies when I was a youngster. Drinking underage on the other side of the border. And then coming back to the U.S. It was one of those.
Maybe nobody knows. Maybe.
Right. I was one of those kids, and so it was very different back then. Whereas as an adult going back in those areas as in law enforcement, yeah, maybe because we see things from a different pair of eyes at that point in our time, right? Or maybe it was always there. But you're right. Look, illegal immigration is a problem. It has been a problem for a long time. And I'll tell you this: I'm born in Mexico. I don't know, Jaime, if you're originally from Texas or Arizona, but I'm from Nogales, Sonora. I was born there. But my mother was fortunate to be able to immigrate, and my father was turned out he's a naturalized citizen. So I eventually, through all the alcoholism from my dad, I eventually got everything. I was in the army with a green card holder as a resident alien. Became a U.S. citizen in 21 in my Class A uniform. But I knew it was a privilege. And when I would see so many people, so many paisanos who come over here and they just wreck it for some people, man. It's like those few just make everybody else look bad sometimes. There's so many people that I've met that are here just to work, just here to do the best they can, provide for their families, mind their own business. So many of them. But it just takes a few sometimes to wreck it. I mean, like right now, we have all these people being taken into custody. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on these arrests, Jaime, because I'm sure you have some very passionate, feelings toward it, right? But people are being arrested in the street. They're being picked up on the street, taken into custody. The media is calling it disappearing people, kidnapping people. They're being taken into custody, right, for warrants and stuff like that, because in some of these cities, considered sanctuary cities, they're not allowing the cops to show up or HSI to show up and take them into custody in a safe environment, in a contained environment like a jail. In Arizona, that's the way it used to happen. We had somebody on an immigration hold. They go pick them up inside the jail and then go lawfully deport them. Now they let them go, and now HSI has to go get them in the street. Jaime, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a little disappointed to hear Victor talk about, my home the way that he does, because I live in the Lower Valley, and there is no.
I grew up.
Okay, well then, do you feel like you can't walk safely down a street in the Lower Valley? I think you pointed to
It
crime.
depends where. It depends where.
I would tell you that living here every day, there's not a single place where I feel like I need to carry my gun for my safety. There's not a single place where I feel like, oh, mija, you shouldn't go over there, because this has been to the credit of our culture, because I'm an El Pasoan by choice. I chose to live here. This was my last duty station, and because I felt that that it wasn't a misdemeanor to be brown in this community, that I felt like the culture in this community was one of the most accepting, loving communities. El Paso is a community of second chances where you can restart and rebuild. It is a very close-knit family community. But if you let other people tell that story, they'll tell you that this is cartel city, this is run by vagrants. The news routinely still shows beer runs on TV because that's what's newsworthy in this town. Victor knows I'm not exaggerating. It still happened.
No.
I want to make sure that that's clear, that the property crimes that he was talking about, yes, that happens. The petty crimes that happen in this community, no different than any other part of this country. The murder rate, still far below the national average, still far below other communities. But specific to your point about the immigration, look, we're a nation that's founded on immigration. And I cannot stand when I hear conservatives say, oh, but my family came here the right way. Calm down, Pilgrim. When most of your relatives came here, there was very few of any immigration laws. Okay, so it's easy to say you came the right way when you didn't have to come during a time that was particularly litigious to come into this country. We have now made it so difficult that to get into this country illegally that we've incentivized to come illegally, very much like prohibition back in the day, right? Where we incentivized crime by, creating absolute, zero tolerance policies on alcohol consumption. So we were trying to fix a problem and ended up creating a whole nother problem and a whole underground institution of those problems. I think that what we are doing now, I think that there is the version that law enforcement will have you believe that we're only going after the criminals, we're only going after the worst of the worst, that these people are, going through a legal system, and that just does not, those facts just don't bear out in every case. And in the same way that I imagine law enforcement resents it when people will point out a few bad apples and judge all of them by it, I would say the same thing about immigrants. That
we
it's
agree
easy to find the sex offender, it's easy to find the predator, the bad person, and judge that entire community by it. The same way you can find cops that are doing some of these raids without the proper documentation, without the proper warrants. And under no circumstances, and as a veteran myself, do I think it's okay for a disabled Army veteran who is an American citizen to be detained in these enforcements.
Let me clear some of the stuff that you just said.
Go ahead,
The first one, because you just said this. This is the problem that when you start talking like this, you're the one that said that, the conservatives a misrepresentation. You just said something that is completely a lie, that these officers are out there arresting people without a warrant. I arrested 99% of the people without a warrant. If you want, I'll show you my credentials that gave me the authority to conduct warrantless arrests. What part of that don't you guys understand? The liberal media continues to say they need a warrant to arrest. No, we don't. I just did a hit on the news about that. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to go testify in Congress on Tuesday specifically on that question, because the left-wing media continue to say that for some reason, somehow, ICE officers and HSI agents are breaking the law by arresting people. I'm telling you right here, as a person that worked for 20 years, you do not need a warrant to conduct an arrest of an illegal alien. As a matter of fact, if you are a U.S. citizen with an illegal alien, I have all the authority in the world to question and detain the U.S. citizen for the purposes of my investigation. Once I find out they're a U.S. citizen, I don't care. They could go. But meanwhile, while I'm conducting the investigation, I have to find out who's who and determine that. So that's another misrepresentation. Oh, I can't talk to a U.S. citizen. You don't know how many U.S. citizens I talked to in my career. Knock-in talks, arrest warrants, search warrants at the border. U.S. citizens, yes. And U.S. citizens commit crimes just like illegals. So we had to decipher the reason why we were there, what we were there for, and then have to determine what. So that you need to stop saying that in public, because that's just not true.
Well, let me just clarify that. Actually, we're on the same page about a couple of things, because you actually agree with me then that if what you're saying is true, then you guys are, then law enforcement, shouldn't say you guys, I'm not going to personalize it, Victor. I don't know you.
Yeah.
Then what you're saying is that law enforcement is using skin color as their probable cause, which courts have found you cannot do that. So if you're not doing it,
no, they're using.
Allow me to finish, Victor. I let you finish, okay? Civility is something we have lost in this country, which I think is unfortunate under the Trump administration. So I do my best to keep it. So I respect your time. The other part of that I think is just demonstrates that what you said is probably not factually accurate is, if in fact everything that you said is correct, then why would a disabled American veteran who is a U.S. citizen ever end up at the point of being detained? You just said, once I find out they're an American, I let them go. So why didn't that happen in this case?
I don't know the circumstance of the case that you're talking about, obviously, but it's not about skin color. That's the first thing you guys go is race card. It's because it's an immigration violation, and it just so happens that they're brown people. There's millions of them from Mexico, Central America, and all over the world. They also arrest Chinese nationals. They also arrest Africans. They also arrest Iranians. So why do they arrest more Mexicans? Because that's the biggest volume. The Central Americans, that's the biggest volume in this country. So it's not fair to say, why are they targeting brown people? No. One of the things that these raids that you have heard about raids, and by the way, right now there's a big difference between a raid and an investigation, like the one that happened in California, right? That was not a raid. They went to the discovery of the marijuana plants because they had already conducted an investigation. In that case, they actually did have warrants to go conduct searches. Very different, like the ones you've seen at the Home Depot, for example. I'm getting a lot of heat because, they show up to the Home Depot and they run, and these people do not have any criminal histories. That's not the way this happens. The investigation is conducted prior, and the information and intel is received prior to the agents going out there. So Victor Avila, they got information that Victor Avila's illegal alien is hanging out at the Home Depot. They're going to go get me. And when we show up and 6 of them run out, then we're going to grab all 6 of them. Then we're going to determine, okay, this is Victor Avila, because you know why? That guy possibly has criminal history. So you're going. The difference here, Jaime, and I know you're going to probably agree here, the difference is that there is no more discretion anymore under the Trump administration. Under the Biden administration, they probably would have said with the other collaterals, you heard the term, let them go because they weren't the target. That's not happening anymore. They're not giving that discretion to the agents. Now they're saying, if you go after Victor Avila, you found him, but there was 8 other illegals with him, they got to go too. And that's the part that I think people are not understanding. So don't hang out with criminal illegal aliens, because you are going to then possibly find yourself in a location where that person is the target, and they might not be coming for you. But if you happen to find yourself in a location where the raid is happening, you're going to go as well. They're not going to say, "Oh, we weren't here for you, and you happen to be legal. Oh, it's okay, don't worry." That's not happening anymore. You are going to get processed, whatever immigration violation you have. And by the way, there's so many different types of immigration violations. A lot of people, the other thing I hear about, oh, no due process. I don't think that people understand on the left what a due process is, because there's so many different types of, and this I agree with you. The immigration system, illegal and legal, has become so cumbersome. It is so confusing that's why people need immigration attorneys to get all their paperwork done, because it is confusing. And even I know a lot of it is still confusing to me. But one of the things is that how people get processed determines and depends on a lot of different factors: where the person is from, how the person entered the country, what country the person is from. And for example, a visa overstay, a person that came in an airplane with a visa and they overstayed their visa, they're 100% illegal, just like if you would have come through the river. The big difference is that if you get encountered by an ICE agent as an overstay, you're gone. There is no detention. There is no judge. There is no nothing. You go out right then and there. People don't know that. There are other people that are mandatory detention based on those factors that I mentioned. You have to go to a camp. You have to go to an ICE detention facility to get processed. Then we have the ones that already got processed. They already went through a judge, and an immigration judge ordered them removed, and they never left. Those can go right away. So we can't lump them all in the same category, because you cannot treat them the same. That's why it's very complicated when you see on the news, oh, they're taking them to Alligator over here, or they're taking them to that. It matters where they go because of the differences of how they came in and their immigration status. It's very individualized. It's not the same for everybody.
I mean, I know you want to. I know you want to reply. Give me a second. Give me a second. I know, but here's what I also want you to include. Okay, you mentioned you're sort of. I'm not sure if you're blaming, but you're holding this administration accountable versus the other. And I think, Victor, you point out a good, interesting point. I was wondering that, by the way, what that difference was in discretion, because I know in my time, if he wasn't the person we're after, we just let this guy go. But now they're taking everybody, right? Which, unfortunately, because of the lack of control of the border, it's sort of amounted to that, right? But I want to ask you, Jaime, based on your observation, based on what you see, how is this administration different than previous administrations or the previous administration, in your opinion?
So I'll get right to that. There was two things that Victor said that I think are worth replying to. One is that while he was defending probable cause and saying it didn't have anything to do with skin color, he did a litany of folks from other countries that were also being detained. But all of those were people of color. I didn't hear
Not from Russia, not from Iran.
Victor, I let you finish, bud. I let you finish. I didn't hear you once say there's people from Sweden, Canada, or France, or anything like that. You gave nothing.
China.
Of people of color. Okay. The second thing that I think that really, as a patriotic American, really saddens me is the idea that we would have to ask for papers of the people we hang around with. I think that assertion itself is about as un-American as you can possibly get. I'm not going to ask my neighbor, what's your legal status? I'm not going to ask somebody I happen to be hanging out with at a bus stop or having a cold one with in a bar what their legal status is. That's un-American. So back to your question, Lou. I think it is always the easy way out of Trump and his administration to blame everything on the Biden administration. Like that's his cop out, right? When he doesn't want to accept. First of all, he doesn't have a policy agenda that you can identify that didn't come from a conservative think tank. He doesn't have an independent thought of his own. So I will tell you that there has been differences in the enforcement of immigration for just about every single administration that there has been since Ellis Island. But I think that if you look at today's conservative Republican Party and you look at who they used to sanctify, Ronald Reagan, if you had Ronald Reagan in today's Trump party, he would be called a rhino. because Ronald Reagan believed that this over enforcement, this unnecessary demonization of immigrants was counterproductive to the values of America. And that person did amnesty. So while Trump loves to point at Biden for how he enforced immigration, that's pretty convenient to forget the fact that the last person who actually believed in amnesty, which amnesty is a dirty word to those folks, was actually a Republican, the former governor of California, Ronald Reagan himself.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this: the law, but the difference in this administration versus the last, though, are the laws different, or are they the same laws, just actually being enforced with less discretion now? What do you say?
So discretion was like the word that you guys both brought up, and I think, and I don't have a law enforcement background.
So let me tell you what that is. Okay, let me help you. Discretion is like this.
No, I know what it is.
You have discretion to arrest. Okay, got it.
Right. I'm aware of it.
So what I'm saying is, this administration versus the last, you say they're different. How are they different in your estimation if the laws are the same?
Right. I was getting there. Okay. So look, not having a law enforcement background, but myself, I do understand that discretion is a key factor for law enforcement to have, because it allows law enforcement, at least my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, to be able to make important game time decisions in the streets. Right? Maybe it's a domestic violence situation that you're arriving at, and maybe you realize, hey, you know what? Nobody hit anybody. It's just a heated argument. There's no reason to take somebody downtown and do all this paperwork to put them in jail and put them, and burden them with something that could be solved by, hey, you know what, brother, you had too much to drink tonight. Go sleep at your mom's house. You can come back tomorrow. That discretion that officers have, I think, is really important, and it's just important for officers to be able to have that trust of the communities that they serve. So I do think that discretion, and I say that as a citizen completely with zero background in law enforcement, but it seems to me that that's a critical tool in the toolbox for law enforcement to have. And I think it helps law enforcement do their job better, because I think particularly when you talk about drug enforcement, I think it allows you to have some discretion with the lower fish to be able to get to a bigger fish. But those are, that's just my thoughts.
Jaime, I get what you get, and I agree in that area. Okay, look, here's my feeling: go get all the criminals that are wanted in their country. I did many drug deals with MS-13 dudes that are wanted in Mexico and wanted in Salvador for murder. Okay, let's get those guys. They would send people like me to go meet them personally and become friends and put them away. Okay, let's go after the child predators. Let's find them. Right. In my heart, I'm like, dude, this dude's just landscaping, bro. He's clean. He's squeaky clean. Other than he's overstayed his visa. Other than all these other things, immigration, right? Which I totally get.
Civil violation.
Let's. But I think we did it to ourselves. Here's why: because the last admin let 10 million plus people in, so we have to just get them out, right? The administration before that. The Trump administration, right? They were working on tightening up the grip on the border. The administration before that, all these people that come in, it reaches a point where we have to say, "Yeah, Stuhl, bro, you got to go home, man. Enough is enough." And I think that's why they're not exercising that discretion, which, in my heart of hearts, I wish they would, but I get the reason why they're not. What do you feel about that?
I look, the way that I feel about it is I think largely a lot of the rhetoric that you hear from the Trump administration is hollow and it's empty. I don't think it has to do really so much with whether or not they're going to let you all as law enforcement professionals use your professional discretion. I think it's a deliberate effort to demonize a particular class of people and get them out. And I think that it is difficult to look at this without understanding where immigration fits in the greater scope of the fabric of our country. It is the height of hypocrisy for us to be calling ourselves a nation of immigrants, to our symbol being the Statue of Liberty, that has that famous quote about "Give me you're tired, you're poor," and so on, where we, simultaneously uphold our tradition of being that melting pot in that place where people aspire to go to, and then turning around and having these draconian enforcements in which you have the promise that Trump made to his base was that he was going to go after the worst of the worst, and he was going to go after the criminals. And because you take away their discretion, you're not doing that. This is why you're getting abuelitas. This is why you're getting lawn service people. This is why you're getting disabled U.S. citizen American veterans caught up because they have taken that away. And I think it's a sloppy way to be able to enforce a policy. Is immigration a problem? Yes, universally agreed. That is not something, contrary to what conservatives will say, that is not something that liberals don't understand. But look, there's a proper way to do it, and then there's a way that is completely un-American, like creating concentration camps and people like lauding it and acting like it's a great thing. Alligator Auschwitz, by any single measure, is embarrassing, and never in the history of mankind have been the people that put people in concentration camps been the good guys.
Look, I gotta tell you this, bro. Alligator Island, whatever it's called, I don't like the fact that it's called Alligator Trails or whatever, but I get the marketing behind it. We got to create some fear in some of these people.
Why do you need marketing and law enforcement?
We do, believe it or not.
So let's, you got some good points there, Jaime. I think that, I think we cannot ignore that the reason that we are in, it's not just the Biden administration, although it was, I mean, bastardized under the Biden administration. I worked this for 20 years. Illegal immigration has always been the problem, but it was always in control here, you know, cat and mouse game. There was enforcement, caught, sent back, all that stuff was going on. But what Biden did was unprecedented, and not just because of, I'm telling you, I'm talking about with Border Patrol, other ICE people, Texas DPS. We had never seen this ever because it had never happened. And they allowed millions of people to access this country completely unvetted. And this is the difference between legal system and illegal. So many people were let in, good people, bad people, really bad people, some that we didn't know that they were bad people. They didn't have any criminal history. And as soon as they came here, they killed a girl jogging in the street in the university. They killed and bludgeoned to death Lisbeth Medina in South Central Texas. And we could have a show of hundreds of thousands of victims. That all I have to tell you is that's who I back up. I'm a public safety guy, and one rape by one person that is in this country illegally is one too many. One DUI by a guy that had been caught 15 times in Colorado when I lived there. An illegal alien had been living here for 15 years, or a bunch of years, 15 DUIs, and killed a 16-year-old kid learning how to drive. That guy, because of that guy, I want you to see, what would you tell that family member that lost their loved ones at the hands of an illegal alien that bludgeoned them to death, that's from Guatemala? Or from where's that community in Africa that is big? Rape is normal over there, and they have a big community up there in upstate New York. The Chinese, and don't forget terrorism. We got a bunch of people on the terror watch list under the Biden administration, record numbers, because on top of all of this that we're talking about people from all over the world, bad countries wanting to access our countries, and they did. They came in and they're here. So I don't forget the victims of crimes. What do you say to them? And I don't want to hear this answer like, illegal aliens don't commit crimes at the rates of U.S. citizens. Of course not. There's more U.S. citizens. Of course, there's more U.S. citizens than that's what Veronica Escobar told me. And I said, of course, there's more. That you can't compare it. But one crime is one too many. I was with a bunch of family members that lost their loved ones at the hands of illegal aliens, and also died because of a poisonous fentanyl pill. It's very sad, man. It's very sad because we have no answer for them. They're like, my God, they say my child possibly, high possibility, would be alive today if it weren't for that illegal alien in this country. And that's possibly true. And we have enough crime here. We have enough crime in the country it's a crime surge like crazy all over the country that we can't even keep up with it, our own. Now we have to deal with some lunatic or some gang member or some cartel member coming from another country to hurt us. I can't tolerate it, man. I can't.
So listen, I'm glad that you asked that question. I do think it's kind of silly, though, to sit there and say, well, don't tell me this because I don't want to hear that. Facts are facts, and facts still matter in this country. And the reality is immigrant communities commit crime at a far less rate not numbers.
Exactly
Percentage.
exactly
No,
what
but
I
by
said.
percentage compares like populations. So you take 100 American citizens and you take 100 immigrants. That is fair. That's a fair comparison. And guess what? 63% less likely to commit a property crime, 34% less likely to commit a violent crime. Immigrants are far less likely to commit a crime than the members of the last Trump administration. And that is a fact. That is not an exaggeration.
Jaime, I'm not talking about immigrants, Jaime. I'm not talking about immigrants. Stop calling them immigrants. I'm talking about illegal aliens.
Okay, so
It's a
this is
big
the
difference.
difference.
They're not
You're
immigrants.
right.
You know who immigrants are? Lou is an immigrant. My parents are immigrants. I'm talking about illegal aliens in this country. They're not the same. I go on Univision. The first thing says, Los inmigrantes. No, 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 no. There's two categories here. Immigrants came here legally, which I want more of. I'm talking about illegal aliens that commit crimes in this country. The legal immigrants, if you commit crimes, you get arrested, and it's normal. I'm talking about the illegal alien community. I'm talking about Tren de Aragua. I'm talking about serious MS-13 guys. I'm talking about those people that have come and terrorized, guess what? Not the U.S. citizen community, their own real immigrant community. You know this, Jaime. They go
Okay.
back, they
Thanks for
live,
your
they live
definition.
next, they go back and live with the same people, and they kill their own people. They terrorize them too.
Yeah, thanks for your definition of what undocumented immigrant is. But I will tell you that what the actual conversation is like your definition is what you're basically trying to make a distinction. I mean, a comparison between immigrants and criminals, and you're trying to draw a straight
No.
line between the two, and that's not the same.
Well,
That's
there's
not
one
fair.
that broke the law.
Victor, I let you
Go ahead,
finish.
go ahead, go ahead,
You
go
guys
ahead.
like to talk over folks, but I'm gonna hold my own here. The reality is this: when you're talking illegal aliens, all of that language, all of that is a specific effort to dehumanize a particular group of people because it's easier to mistreat them when you treat them less than human.
No.
The reality is the people that you gave, the examples you gave about what you call illegal aliens, you pointed out nothing but criminals. That is not the majority of the folks that are here under what you call an illegal alien. Most of those people are here are what Lou said, people that are here just to work. Okay, so if you're going to make that distinction, at least be intellectually honest about it. The reality is most of the illegal aliens, I hate that term, but I'll use it for the sake of this conversation, are not criminals.
I'm gonna clear it up. Okay, I'll clear it up for you a little bit better. I'm talking about the criminal illegal alien. A criminal, who is the criminal illegal alien? The one that came into this country illegally and committed a crime. I'm not even including the hardworking long guy. I'm not talking about him. I have a different conversation. You'll be surprised about my point about them. I'm not talking about that guy. I'm talking about the guy that came here illegally and is committing property crimes, burglaries, and maybe more serious crimes. That's the one that I'm talking about. And by the way, I know you get offended with the term illegal alien, but do you know that it's a real term? It's right here in my book. In the Immigration and Nationality Act, before I was an agent, I was a federal probation officer and worked for the U.S. courts. I had to write the term in the court documents, illegal alien. There's no such thing as undocumented citizen or whatever it is that you guys make up. The law, if you don't like it, call Veronica Escobar so she could change the law and change the name. But don't get offended by the name of what the law calls them. That is, what is a resident called? It's a resident alien. We call them a lapper, lawful permanent resident. The card says.
Bro, I was a resident alien on my card. I hate it.
Yeah, you were a resident alien. That's right.
Sure, but
I don't care about the term.
Use matters. There was a time
it does
perfectly
matter.
acceptable in this country to refer to Black people in some very pejorative ways. And you know what? At the time, that was legal. That was okay. That was what the government used, but it didn't make it right. So that's no different than calling someone an illegal alien now. We didn't even consider them a full person at one point in our country. So by going by that definition, I think that's a terrible way to try to justify.
I'm just going by what the law says.
Unfortunately, outside of our control, right? Let me ask you this, Jaime. Let me ask you this. You know that Obama probably deported over almost 4 million people in his two terms, I believe, right? Probably more than that in his two terms. I believe Biden was like 4 million or more, right? We're probably at about a couple 100,000 maybe right now, if less. Victor would probably know the number better than I would. So what is the difference? What is this administration, our current administration, doing wrong that those other guys aren't, that nobody's up in arms right now? Why
The
are people up
methodology.
in arms? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the methodology. People will say,
Yes.
"Oh, well, liberals didn't care when it was Obama." No, we did care.
You
We
did?
don't have blind loyalty to a person, and we were critical of the Obama administration when they did it. Some of us were also critical of the Biden administration when they were doing it. But this is a different situation because now you have people, and I love when people say, "Oh, my people did it the right way." You have people that are going to their immigration hearings and then they're kicked out of that hearing, right? They'll dismiss the case and then snatched up. That is something that is different. That is discouraging. This is where I said earlier
I'm going to tell you right now that you're really wrong,
Victor, please
Jaime,
let me
but you're
finish.
really wrong, man.
Victor,
I did
please,
it.
no, it's happening. It's
No,
happening.
I
You
did
can't
it under
deny
the
what's
Obama
happening.
administration.
Look,
I
you
arrested
cannot
people.
like it. You cannot like it, but the reality is
No.
it's happening. I've seen
Oh
it.
my
I've
God.
witnessed it here in El Paso at the courts downtown.
I
where
did it.
someone will go in, they will be at a hearing that they
That
have.
was me.
They will dismiss it, and then there's ICE agents waiting for them in the
I
hall.
did that, Jaime,
that
under the
is
Obama
discouraging.
administration.
Okay, but we can talk over each other and then have
No,
like
but
a
it's because it's kind of
productive.
hard for you to think that it only happens now.
No,
I
the reality,
did that.
the reality of this, Victor, is
but-
that like I'm trying to have a civil conversation with you and go back and forth and allow you the time to make your points. But I don't know if it bothers you so much that you feel you got to talk
Yeah,
over.
lies do.
But, well,
Lies bother me.
listen, I've heard your lies too, but I've waited for you to finish so that I could turn around and correct the record. So if you have a difference of opinion, hey, listen, I think that Lou's been nice enough to provide us both a forum here. Let's be respectful of it. Okay. So my point that I'm making here is that the way that the methodology, the going into the communities, the going into homes to pull people out and splitting the families to the degree that they are, that is the part that is bothering people. And this is not something that is made up by the media. These are citizens that are taking video of this stuff happening. And that is the part that people are like, hey, this is not right. And let me tell you, that's why a majority of Americans have now changed their position on how this is being done. So public opinion initially was very much in support of what the Trump administration was. If you look at the latest polling numbers, you'll see that they're no longer supportive of the methodology of it. And I think that's the issue that people have. You guys have both said, look, this administration took away discretion. That in and of itself has shown that you end up with these wide nets that catch a lot of people that were unintended.
So Jaime,
and end up being stuck in that.
Sorry to cut you off, but look.
No. So
I think that's a very good point. Wait a minute, 1 second. But here's the thing: the methodology you said is different, right? But do you think that there are extenuating circumstances that have been created by the media, by the protesters, that have created that situation where law enforcement has had to up the ante, the method in which to detain people? Because you can go pick up a guy at the jail, illegal alien, criminal alien at the jail. Nobody cares. Victor used to do that in the Obama administration, right? Nobody cared. Nowadays, you go, there's people picketing outside. Or that's assuming this is in a sanctuary type city. In a city like California, a place like that, they kick him, they let him loose and say, go get him over here. And they literally have to chase him down. And there's people already set up, like an audience. That's why the methodology is different, unfortunately. But in terms of what nationally people want, I was just looking at from CNN. It says New York Times said 55% of New York Times, 55% of people said they want all illegal immigrants out. Marquette 64, CBS News 57%, ABC News 56%. So I think a lot of people are just sick and tired of the illegal immigration. Some of the people who are just taking advantage of our system, right? And from healthcare, that's a whole other can of worms. But
no, Lou, I want to touch on that because I think that's a very important point that you bring in. Not talked about a lot. Economic impact, huge. You want to talk about cities? Let's start with El Paso. The free healthcare given to illegals in El Paso is the most unfair thing that I've seen all my life. They can't deny them service. I'm not talking about denial of service. I'm talking about that the person is already here illegally and they use the emergency room like their primary care because they don't have insurance. However, they don't pay shit. My parents didn't have insurance. They get hurt, they go to Thomas, and back then it was Thomas and now it's USMC. They have to pay for $150 a month for I don't know how many years because they're legally in this country and they follow the law and the rules. I pay property taxes through the roof. And the schools, my goodness, to educate people that are not from this country. The state of Texas, we have multi-millions of people from another country that everybody pays for. It is an economic impact. It is an economic impact on our school systems, on our healthcare systems, and of course, the criminal justice system. When I went to the jail in El Paso County Jail, I would say about, and you're going to agree with this with me, Jaime, because I think about 85% of the people in there were illegal because there's no crime in El Paso. Regular people are, the crime that happens in El Paso is DUI, prostitution. Believe me, I know, I've seen it. County court. No, it's full of federal inmates who are illegal and drug related. And the jail survives based on the funding that the federal government gives them, right? Right. They have to, because
100% in agreement. And how is that fair to El Paso taxpayers?
it's not.
To
I
pay
agree.
for the same
It's not.
service
I
twice.
agree.
We have to pay for law enforcement at the local level to enforce our laws. Then we got to pay the federal government to house them in our county jail. We should not be housing them. They should be housed at a federal facility. I'm so glad you brought that up, Victor, because when you talk about the economic impact of the of immigration in general, look, are there kids that go to school here? Sure. Are there folks that, and I'll use the example you gave between your parents and somebody who goes to UMC, to the emergency room, they also are set up on a payment plan. That is the same for everyone. This idea that the undocumented are just like suckling off of the American taxpayer teat is a figment of imagination. The reality is they put in $11 billion annually into state coffers. And for those of them that are committing the additional crime of using somebody else's social security number, which is an additional crime, I'm telling you that, but they're putting into a system they'll never get back. That's $7 billion for free Uncle Sam is getting to help keep Social Security solvent. To say nothing of the fact that when you talk about their ability to pay for public services for other people because they're contributing to a system which they don't benefit from.
Great point. I don't disagree at all with you there. I'll give you the other side. Last year in 2024, approximately 10 million undocumented Mexican nationals that live in Mexico sent back in remittances $65 billion to Mexico alone. 64.8 something. You can look it up.
Yeah.
What in the world? So it overshadows the 11 billion that they contributed. This is the problem. They're sustaining Mexico, by the way. Right now, Claudia Sheinbaum is having a hard time because that $65 billion that Mexico depends on, they're not getting it. It's dropped dramatically. And a lot of other factors. Illegal immigration, it made the cartels even richer. They're getting less money. So 65, just Mexico alone. Imagine if we start counting Central America and all the other countries where the money is sent back. Americans, tax-paying Americans that we pay a lot of taxes every year, that's what gets them, man. You know that when you start talking about people's money in their pocket, they're like, how in the world is that fair? Remember what's happening in Chicago? The people in Chicago, especially the Black community, were like, what the hell are we, chopped liver? We're Americans, and they're getting housing, they're getting food stamps, they're getting everything taken care of. It might only be for 1, 2, or 3 years, but the people can barely pay the rent in Chicago. These are Americans. That's where they're like, how can this, why are they putting them first? And that's where, well, the money's going back. The money's going back. There was a story.
Just to fact check you, that's $11 billion net to the US. That's after the money they send back. Why? Because the undocumented buy American, because they spend their money here, their rent, the food that they eat, the cars that they drive, the gas that they put in their car, that money is spent here. So that $11 billion that the US government makes, that $11 billion impact to states annually is after the money they sent back. So I just want to make sure that we fact check that because that's important for people to understand.
So as we wrap up, I think we bring up some very good points, all right? We can agree that immigration is legal immigration is necessary, yes, for our nation.
Yeah,
there's a purpose behind it, really to help impoverished countries come have an opportunity, right? Now, but we can also agree that there's a way to go about it legally, yes? And when people violate the law, it becomes a huge problem. Over time, it compounds. So Jaime, how do we fix it? What do you suggest?
Simple. I have the answer for it.
Tell me.
Use the same energy that you are and resources that you're putting into going into communities to go after the undocumented towards the real problem, the people that hire them, the people that incentivize to come here, because that's also a crime. So we're going to say that the whole root of this problem is law enforcement and that we should be enforcing the laws and preventing crime. Then if we really genuinely want to stop it, then the Trump administration should be taking half of whatever they're allocating towards rounding up the undocumented and start raiding the actual businesses. Start going after those corporations. Start raiding those farms in California where those farm workers are working at substandard wages. Raid those people. And I guarantee you, once you start hitting them, that problem will stop in its tracks immediately. But that's part of the conservative base. Big business contributes a lot of money to the Republican Party. So where you see these problems with enforcement, whether it's drug enforcement, immigration, all of these enforcements are because it is a failure of policy. So the way to fix this is by policy. And the way to fix that is go after the incentive. Go after the companies. If you shut them down,
I'm not going to agree. I'm going to agree with you 100%.
So enforcing the laws that are on the books when it comes to
we all agree. And isn't that America at the end of the day? We all agree on that.
That's because, and I'll tell you something, so you won't think that I'm the devil and I'm against illegal immigration. This is what I think, and it upsets me because the reason why I blame the Biden administration so much is not because of it's what they did. They incentivized all these people, and they dangled this carrot in front of them, and of course they came. I would have come too if I was in Guatemala or in Venezuela or Peru or whatever the hell I would have been in China or Europe, and I hear that the border is open. I would have come too. And it's not fair. It's not fair to those people because I think those people were used. And I acknowledge that these people, I talked to a lot of them. As a matter of fact, I was in El Paso. Remember when they were gathering around the church in San Ignacio? Yes. So I'm talking to the people there and I come across a Colombian and I'm telling him what's going on. And he's like, he's like, I don't know. I'm homeless. I don't have a job. He says, I'm worse off right now than I was in Colombia. I said, what you do in Colombia? He says, I'm a barber. I had my barber shop. I was okay. But because of what you just said, the incentive that the U.S. government gave me, you know what he said? That really hit me. And it hit me hard in my heart. He said, because they made it sound that when I come to the U.S., I'm going to become rich. And he lit a firecracker in my, you know what? Because I told him, listen, you might not understand what the American dream is. The American dream is, obviously, we like the legality, but you come to this country and you work your ass off. And that's all my parents did to give to my sisters and I. They worked. They were not a public charge to anybody. They were a member of the community. They gave back to the community. They assimilated to the United States of America because they wanted to be Americans. And that's one of the biggest difference that I've seen from 25 years ago, from the last 5-7 years, that a lot of people were just coming, not because they want to be Americans, because they want to see, well, hey, they're going to give me free stuff. I'm coming so much that I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to sell my car and I'm going to come. And there's a majority of the category, there's a big chunk of those people. And I feel bad for them. CBP, what happened, Jaime? No good. Because it was illegal. They just invented this. The parole system, they started issuing paroles. I had the authority to issue paroles as an agent. I couldn't believe that they were just issuing 2-year paroles with a work permit because somebody showed up at the river. You can't do that, man. So now all those people find themselves with absolutely no status. And I say it, and I'll say it again, a lot of them is no fault of their own. That's why I think that chunk of category of people need an opportunity to say, hey, start over, man. And let's do it the right way. Are we on the same page on that?
So from a labor perspective, I will tell you that, as somebody who believes in that workers should be paid a fair wage, I'm going to tell you that if Republicans actually went after the root problem, which was providing the incentive, I think Americans need to prepare themselves to pay a whole lot more for their produce. I think Americans need to be prepared to incur the costs. And so while they very happily accept the benefit of it, they need to understand that, okay, you want to deport all these folks, you want to get rid of all these folks, prepare to pay more. And not just in Trump's tariffs, but now you're going to have, Trump's tax on the on working people, because now your groceries are going to cost a whole lot more. Your meat that you have is going to cost you a whole lot more. A lot of your service industry is going to cost a whole lot more. Then we'll see what people think about it then.
I agree with you there. And the most part that I agree with you is because I work these cases. I'm a subject matter expert in human trafficking investigations, and the exploitation of these illegals is the worst that I ever seen.
Absolutely.
I did a big case, an undercover case from China, Mexico to New York. Man, the way these people were being treated is inhumane. And so I know about the agricultural workers and how they get exploited and get paid crap wages. There was a case that I did that they were, the employer, the agricultural employer, had his own little store and made the workers buy their toiletries and their soap, a bar of soap for $5.
It's called a company store. That used to happen here in the 20s in Appalachia, where there was entire communities that had to pay back into the employer for everything that they got at the job site. And what does it say about a country where we are happy to exploit this labor from immigrants, and then we're turning around and celebrating alligator Auschwitz?
I'd rather it be all legal. I want it all legal.
I mean, you had me good until you gave me that last one, bro. It's not a reflection of the country. It's a reflection of certain people who are unethical.
A certain party. You're right. It's not all of us.
It's not all. It's not the whole country. It's certain people who are just unethical, who don't care. You know what I mean? And I'm with you there. But listen, we're obviously a Mexicano ancestry, right? And I've always believed that we should be good examples, right, to our fellow Americans. You know what I mean? So what do we do? From your point of view, Jaime, in a short answer, what can you do to make it better, to not aggravate the situation? What can you do?
I would say this. Sure. I would say this. I would encourage everybody to watch the 1980 GOP presidential debate, because it's eye-opening, because that debate featured two prominent Republicans, one from a border state, which was George W. Bush, and the other from another border state, then Governor Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And two border state Republican candidates. If you look back and you heard their positions on immigration, you guys would be calling them flaming liberals, because they understood there was no reason to demonize communities. They understood the value that immigrants bring to this country, and they understood the economic impact of having them and the economic necessity of having a workforce here that will do what Americans have proven they will not do. They will not work in the fields. This has been tried. They have opened it up and said, all right, we're going to take anybody who'll come in. They had 3 people at a farm come in. 2 were no-shows. 1 showed up and left at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I believe it.
Automation. They've tried automation. Automation has not caught up yet. So it's not there yet. But people like my mother who grew up in La Pizca, let me tell you, that's hard work.
It is.
It's hard work. I'm proud that the stereotype of our community is hard workers.
Look, I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
When people turn around and try to make us the stereotype of our community being criminals.
The only thing I'm going to counter, Lou, let me counter. The only thing I'm going to counter with this, Jaime, is I could also pull out the same videos of Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Obama that sound like right-wing nuts.
Absolutely. And you'll find
sometimes when I watch them and I'll say what they say, and people are like, Trump. I said, it wasn't Trump that said it. It was Obama that said it. It was Hillary Clinton that said it. It was Bill Clinton. Have you seen the videos of Bill Clinton? You would think he's Trump, even stricter than Trump. So I understand. I think you and I I don't like it. I don't like that the immigration system, especially in 2008, was used against the minorities in this country. And what's that saying in Spanish? Nos hicieron atole con el dedo, and they said si se puede and immigration, and they got us all wild up, and they did nothing, man, and they used us. That I also recognize. they've been using this team. One of the things that I don't like the term is immigration reform. Oh, I hate that term. I don't know if you like it, but because everybody has used it. We need immigration reform. Let's do something. There is a solution, Jaime. There is a solution to those
Let me
workers.
guess. Is it a wall in Mexico's going to
No,
fix?
no. I'm talking about the solution of the workers.
Come on,
I'm talking
Jaime.
about
Come on,
there is a
Jaime.
solution, and I think you're going to be surprised. I think you're going to be surprised with what Trump's going to come up when it comes to the agricultural workers.
At this point, I'm not surprised by anything Trump does.
But you'll be pleasantly surprised, I should say, by the hospitality. I think they're working on something there because they know that we just want people to be here legally.
Right. Look, they know, Jaime, Trump's a business guy. He knows we need all that labor. I'm with you. I tell my friends, I go, the reason we pay that so much for lettuce is because of probably a Mexicano picked it, just so you know, right? I'm down with that cause too. I've been to the fields, never worked the fields, but I've been there and I've watched them and I've talked to them. I get it. I feel that. But I think we should do what your boy Cesar Chavez did. Just handle his business with the illegals. That's what he did. I know you like him, but the guy.
Let me tell you. I'll tell you what Cesar Chavez really did. What he did was work across ethnic groups. He did. There's something called the solidarity clap that a lot of people have used. There's the union fist. A lot of imagery that was done that Trump has actually corrupted the union fist. How dare a man who's never worked a hard goddamn day in his life, a rich boy's son, incorporate that? But let me tell you something. What Cesar Chavez did is what a lot of us should be doing, and that is working across sectors, organizing in our local communities to come up with policy solutions. And that's what we don't have. And yes, immigration reform is one of those, because the problem is we have a broken system. We have a system that goes after the immigrants because that's law and order, while completely ignoring the incentivizers, which is the companies that are hiring them. That's law and order too. That's illegal too. But we have a lopsided approach. We are not even-handedly using this. And I think if you truly believe in solving the issues related to immigration, you go after the companies. But the right will never do that because that's who contributes to their campaigns.
All right, so let's just wrap this up. Here's what I think we should do. You ready? We should all go grab a beer. That's what we should go do. Just kidding. Here's what we should do. I think we should spend a lot of time educating the immigrant on what the process is, because Victor's right. Immigration process is complex. Bro, I was a resident alien for a long time. I'm wearing my Class A uniform, and then I'm not even a U.S. citizen yet. You know what I'm saying? It's a long, tedious process, and we should educate the prospective, U.S. citizen, legal resident, so that they know and they can pick that route. It's just not everyone wants to learn. Do our best part to educate. This is how you do it. This is how you don't do it, and choose, right? And do our very best to do that. You're right. This is the land of opportunity. People want to come here and do great things, and they can, should they just do it right, So look, you're a success story, Jaime. You served in the Army. You went from paratrooper to paralegal, que suave. And then my friend Victor, he was a probation officer, right? In El Paso, the HSI special agent. So we are in our own walking success story. So let's just go out there and be good examples. Can we do that?
Love it, brother.
Let's be good examples. I appreciate your time. Look, if you like what we did today, like, subscribe, share with your friends. You can see que sí se puede have a conversation.
Sí se puede.
Ándale, pues. We can have a conversation right here, even though we might disagree and agree, but we need to hear that. Otherwise, nothing gets done, right? Nothing gets done. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much, Jaime. Keep up the good work.
Victor, thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias.